And on and on. All right.
I get it. It goes on and on.
Echo, echo, echo.
Don't stop. All right,
That's
enough. Good morning. Let's see. Good morning, everybody. It being 9 o'clock on Wednesday, May 14th, we're calling to order the Kane County Human Services Committee. If we could call roll, please.
Allen?
Away.
She was, okay, she is on. Garcia? Gripe?
Yeah.
Lewis? Tarver? Linder?
You're here.
Surges?
Yes, here.
Ross? With your ex officio, you do have an in-person quorum.
Perfect.
Alan on the way. Sorry.
Yep, Deb, we noted that. And do we have Mr. Tarver online at all? Okay, we do not, but we can, are we okay allowing him in when he calls in?
Yes.
Thank you so much. We are not approving minutes, or we do have minutes? Okay, Mr. Lindner, can we get a proposal to approve the minutes from April 9th?
Yes, I would ask for unanimous approval of the minutes of April 9th, 2025.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I don't believe we have anybody in room or online for public comment that I'm aware of. Monthly financial reports are on file. If anybody has any questions on those, please reach out. Department of Human Resource Management, item 7, collectively A through E. And we will let Jamie or Christine.
Good morning, everyone. Christine Davis, Human Resources. So the first report is the Blue Cross Blue Shield monthly invoice for the month of March. That is at 1.5 million. The next report on file are the monthly Blue Cross and Blue Shield totals. So this is the employees, spouses, dependents, and MERP participants. And the next report is the Assured Partners report from our brokers. And you can see 2023, 24, and 25 are listed. Does anybody have any questions?
Mr. Gripe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Anything unusual, unexpected, or that concerns you on up or down on any of those?
No. Do you have anything, Jamie?
Everything's normal and as expected. I just kind of wanted to point out, if you want to go back to one page, page 22, as you can see, we added to reserve in 2024. So and we're green so far this year. So something that we're talking next week with our brokers regarding rates for next year. And I think we're going to be budgeting to take money out of reserve and keep rates down, which will be good for your budget.
It's always a fine line when we're discussing this particular account, if you will, as compared to the county budget and reserves there. This is a self-managed account that all of our employees pay insurance rates into. And our challenge is to keep an appropriate reserve there to cover the claims coming in and not accumulate money to the point where there might be a rate increase or draw that down too low where we might have to raise rates, but to find an equilibrium there. And I think we do a good job at that, but I think we can adjust that down just a little bit. Is that what we're saying?
Yes, well, part of it is, each year we evaluate rates. The broker provides us information regarding the trends expected in the next year in the health field. The county absorbs 83% of that rate. The employee absorbs 17%. So when rates go up or down, it affects both the county and the employee. So I think we will have some additional expenses now that we have the mental health mandate that the state recently passed. But given that we have a really healthy health insurance fund right now and the fact that we put money into reserves, that the goal is to keep them at least flat. But we will be discussing that next week with our brokers, and next month we should have a rate proposal for you, and we might have a couple of options out there for you.
Dynamite. Mr. Roth?
The reserve is currently at what, approximately 9 million?
Yeah, that's in the finance reports.
And do we consider that a restricted so no one else can?
Absolutely.
It is because it does include employee contributions. So that is for health fund use only. So if the county wants to draw that down, it does that in the form of reduced rates.
Right.
And then it impacts both the employee and the county equally.
And that was I think I remember a couple meetings ago, Cliff, you said that was a number we kind of spun around the chair to come up with, and it's working out pretty good. Correct?
Our broker has a recommendation, a formulaic recommendation of about where that should hit that they evaluate every year. It's based on our, what's called the IBNR. It's incurred but not yet received number, which is how many invoices that we expect that we have incurred, expenses we have incurred, but not yet received an invoice for. That's based formulaically based on our monthly costs. So every year we evaluate this again based on where the broker estimates our reserve should be, where it is now, expected trends. So a lot of factors go into it. So we will meet, including finance, with our broker and kind of review all of those factors and come back with some more information next month.
Bill, is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, one quick
Right.
question. Thank you. So the total cost, if I'm reading the chart right, is the 1,628 for the most recent month on the chart, right?
That is the current month's invoice. So that is based on what is invoiced this month. Understand that those numbers do fluctuate a little bit because we may get invoiced 5 months from now from something that occurred in January. So there is a possibility that some of this changes as time goes on, but that's what the invoice stated.
Yeah, thank you. I was just trying to, the difference between 1,743 and 1,628 is about 115,000. So we're nicely funded above what the actual costs were. Does that 115 in the case of this month go into reserves? Or am I misreading?
Each month, the amount that we received in funding in excess of cost goes into the reserve account.
John, if you look at the screen right now.
Yep.
That there's your spread.
Okay.
That is going into reserve.
Thank you.
Bear in mind, while that looks like a lot of money, that's for 1 month and you compound that by 12, a serious claim could wipe that out in a heartbeat. So,
Well, and looking at this chart, there were 2 months where we had more claims than in income, right? So
It does happen often,
happens,
right? It's
yeah.
all kind of, it fluctuates throughout the year.
Okay.
It's one of those accounts where you really need to look at, a snapshot in time, not a period specific. So
I have forgotten, do we have some kind of a stop loss? Linda, I've forgotten. Do we have some kind of a stop loss on individual claims?
absolutely.
It's $205,000.
205. That's a
That's
strong
per
number.
individual per year.
Okay.
So we're picking up the first 205 before Blue Cross pays a dime, but they administrate the claims for us.
That's a pretty safe number for them. I mean, by the time they cut the prices down and chop the doctors and hospitals down, it's hard for them to get up much over 250.
Those are usually people with serious medical conditions and things like that. We do have a handful every year that are over that, somewhere 10 to 12. So we every year we have had people that have exceeded that. But you're right, it is a fairly safe number for them, but we do pay for that insurance as well. So however much we want to set that number at determines our insurance rate. So that's our broker's recommendation from their analysis at the best stop loss.
Mr. Roth?
Yeah, sorry, this is Roth. Are we earning interest on that account?
Yes.
I couldn't tell you what that is though offhand.
Okay, I'd be curious, what we're earning. This,
The treasurer,
is
it
treasurer
handles that.
manages it for us?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
It's in Bitcoin.
Okay. Okay, we're not going there. Christine, please continue.
The next report are the monthly applicants and staff changes. If anybody has any questions, I do want to mention we did change a little bit of the graph on page 32 for the exit interviews. We have the dates listed now and the responses.
That big green more money is getting smaller, isn't it? Okay.
And the next is the monthly workers' comp and liability reports.
Hello, David Larson, Risk Manager, Human Resources. So there you see, our fiscal year to date for claims, at least that have been entered through our claims broker and handler CCMSI. We don't enter every claim. If there's something that is like truly internal where we suffer a loss that somehow we caused, something like that, we track that separately. And I've just finished some criteria generation for how I'm going to begin reporting that to this committee. Just as a quick example.
I'm going to ask you to get right into
Sure.
that microphone for us.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
And on the screen that we're looking at,
Yeah.
where do we see the total?
So the total, if you just take the claim count column there and add it down, that's 19 claims that have been reported to CCMSI, our claims broker. There are another 16 internal claims that are not reflected here that are not part of this auto-generated graphic.
Will you do us a favor? And if you are on staff now going forward, I'm not requesting that somebody go into a computer program and rebuild this.
Sure.
But if you can simply take a marker and underneath that total the number of claims that are inside and outside,
Certainly.
and then total the amount paid and the outstanding reserve, just to give us some indication of what we're at. Because I think that at face value, if you look at this, this looks great and we're trending wonderfully, but I think it's just a snapshot that doesn't give the clear picture. Not that we're doing poorly.
Right.
But I think that there's more to it. That and so if we have a dedicated person with the dedicated time, let's refine this just a bit.
Absolutely. Can do.
Thank you.
One of the things I've been looking at are criteria to judge preventability. So is the incident preventable versus not preventable? I've finished my internal guiding document for that and have begun the process of marking those internally in our system of what is what. By way of example, of the 16 internal total claims that we have, including both the ones that are reported here that you see reflected in this chart and our 16 internal ones, we have a total of 37 liability claims. 8 of them are preventable so far this calendar year.
Okay.
7 of them from the sheriff's office, 1 from animal control. Just going through and looking at causation and saying, could something simple have been done, due attention, driving, things like that, to avoid that incident. So you're going to start seeing some of that data being reported after this meeting.
And David, we don't mean to be controversial and I
Sure.
see you, John. When we say preventable, an accident is an accident. But if we can say, hey, maybe we should have fixed a pothole that was preventable.
Yes.
Somebody making a judgment call of, gosh, I wish you weren't texting when you got into that car accident. That kind of gets a little dicey as to, an accusation there, but I get what you're saying and yes, we want to identify those. So thank you.
Thanks. I'm sorry, Jamie.
Jamie, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say the totals you're looking for are here. They're just on a different page. They're on page 37. So there are totals available to you. So if you look down at those policy, that's the past 4 policy periods plus the current policy period.
There we go.
Thank you.
We blow that up a little.
John, was this to your question?
One of them, yes. But the,
You only get one at a time.
oh, whatever. Okay, that
Okay,
was
go
one.
ahead.
Here's number 2. So as far as the preventability and Cash, maybe you could go back to that. I forget what the page was with the bars that we were looking at just a moment ago. That one. Thank you. So, adult justice center doesn't surprise me at all. I would expect that kind of interface.
Yeah.
Coroner does, as to what that is, but you then begin to touch on the bigger issue, which is, getting these not to happen again. So how do you go about that? That's the risk part of, I love working with
Sure.
risk managers, but, so how are we addressing, getting these things to slow down?
So a lot of it is looking backward and seeing what incidents have occurred, what kind of prevention category do they fall under? Is it something due to moving too fast, speeds, improper care of the physical environment of the workplace, things like that? And then seeing what easy mitigation measures can be taken to reduce the incidence and severity of events like that.
David, do you know what those 2, without getting granular to the individual, what the 2 from the coroner's office were? And Michelle, I see you next. Thanks.
One, I believe, is a musculoskeletal strain from moving a deceased person. The other one is a slip, trip, fall.
Thank you. Michelle, did you have a question?
Comment if that's okay, Gums here. Actually, Mr. Grape, I'm not really surprised. I went on a ride along with our coroner, and the environment to which they have to navigate is, very interesting. So the hoarder situations do occur. I've watched them navigate that, and it does not surprise me at all to see that in that environment, because they're very tricky environments. A lot of the officers don't even touch the decedent, and they have to do all of that physical work. So that part, I just wanted to point that out. I think they do a great job.
Yeah. Michelle, I think it's so important to point out that, while some of this, is, how do I say, maybe a little bit shocking to us to see that number of claims coming in. I do believe I have 2 points. The first is that it is inherent to the job and the risk. And secondly, as long as within our peer group out there, we're performing, admirably, if you will. I'm okay with that. If we were to look across other municipalities, other counties, and other, within our peer group and say, wow, our claims are significantly higher in both frequency and severity, I would be alarmed, but my information is that that's not the case. And where, David, maybe 6 years ago, that could have very well been the case. I think the point that where we're at today is much different, and the cooperation between the offices and the department here is phenomenal, in my opinion. So,
Cliff, can I respond to you? You don't mind?
yes.
Yeah, so I went from the very start of this incident to the very end of the incident. And to your point of things being a little bit higher, 6 years ago, I want to point out that the investment in some of the things to assist them in doing their duties have probably assisted us in reducing that risk or the injuries.
Agreed. Totally
So
agreed.
I just wanted to highlight that point because we got to keep that in mind that some of the things that cost money are helping us in the long run. And I think that's like you hit the nail on the head with that one.
Yep. Thank you. Mr. Linder?
We notably have one elected office that has a lot more claims than others, and it's understandable because of the nature of the work, but they do have a lot more claims. Do we allocate the premiums differently to that department?
Premiums are not allocated to the department. There's a special revenue fund for insurance liability. All the premiums, all of the claims, they all are paid out of that special revenue fund.
Okay,
So
how
it's not
special
actually
revenue fund?
allocated out at all.
Okay, yeah.
So Mike, if I can just, interject a little bit of personal on this. While there is always a distinction made between internal controls, which kind of becomes an us versus them scenario, there are specific instances such as this type of account where us is both the offices and the departments under our control, and we don't separate those out. And I do believe that that's the proper thing to do. And I don't know when you would make that separation or at what size you would make that separation, but right now we have the resources to assist with that the best. And I think we do a good job of it. So,
The special revenue fund was something that I had forgotten.
okay. Yeah. Mr. Gripe?
Thank you. So again, I think we're all rowing in the same direction here, but it would be good to understand over time when we see a number like we saw for the sheriff's department, which we think is understandable. Is it lower than we might expect? Is it higher than we might expect? But the number one word in risk management is why.
Yeah.
Why did this happen? And what caused the,
Yeah.
So if it's something like Michelle was talking about that we can try and improve, great. If it's education, great. But what a lot of people don't understand about workers' compensation claims is that they have multitudinous impacts: loss of time, wages paid out, litigation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's way more than a number we might see here, which is why what you do is very important. So thank you.
And John, I think David would be open to a one-on-one if you had a half an
Yeah.
hour, just wanted to kind of bring yourself up to speed. That would allow David to sharpen the pencil and dive in a little bit to some of the historical sides, and that would be a great exercise. So.
And if you guys are interested, the why is included for the current year. So that's kind of what's up on the screen now. It's on page 36. So whether it's a slip, trip, fall, it shows resisting arrest is one of the categories that we use. Motor vehicle accident, that's what MVA is for, motor vehicle accident. Combative, is another one that the sheriff often
What is
has.
foreign body?
It can be a lot of different things. I think,
Is that a bullet?
no,
Oh,
It
it's
could be
not.
a sawdust, a tree branch.
Oh, got it, got it,
some
got it.
sort
Can be a lot of
injury.
things. That's-
I'm just like, well, because 2 up says combative and then 2 down is foreign body. I'm just like, yowza.
How about caught in between?
Yeah, exactly.
What, you tried to make it between 2 cars or something?
A rock in a hard place, maybe.
Yeah, okay.
Anyhow, okay. David, thank you so much.
Okay, so the next report on file is the monthly training report. So this is the annual sexual
I'm
harassment.
so sorry, Christine. Anita?
I'm sorry. So, are you sharing this with the sheriff and having a dialogue with him?
So I've been working with the Human Resources Director at the Sheriff's Office, and she's requested some more specific reporting about prevention or lack of prevention for the incidents. And so I'm putting together that report for her now.
And
I think the
forward to
relationship
we're
is,
doing- Okay,
yeah, Anita, I think the relationship is healthy right
Good,
now.
good.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And just to clarify, if I may, every department or elective office that I've reached out to for cooperation, for dialogue, has been very receptive, very cooperative, no issues there.
Thank you.
All right. So the sexual harassment training compliance, it's an annual training. We're getting a lot of participation in that. So if you haven't done your training, please get it done.
Thank you so much. Item 8, compliance, the monthly training report we just completed. Item 9, old business. Jamie, do we have anything there?
We do not have anything there.
Thank you so much. Item 10, 10A resolution I'm going to put my glasses on and read this one. Authorizing changes to the compensation and position management policy within Kane County Personnel Policy Handbook. Jamie, I think we isolated this to the specific item in question. And if you can just give us a background on that before we take a motion.
Certainly. So in our conversations, as we were talking about reorganization, some of the department heads had brought forward that they find that reorganization that reduces overall costs requiring board approval was just challenging to their reorganization, especially if we're considering any kind of attrition adjustments. So it was definitely a vague section in the policy. So we tried to clarify when board approval is needed to clarify that if it is an overall reduction, continuation of business with a reduction of overall costs, that no board approval is required. It would just be a decision for the department head and human resources to grade any resulting positions and make the needed changes. So if they have a vacancy and they can reorganize and save money as a result, that doesn't have to go through the board approval process. If it will cost more money, or if it causes a reduction in services, then it will go through the board.
Seems fair and reasonable. Mr. Linder, could I have a motion for that?
Yeah, I would move adoption of that resolution.
Do we have a second?
Gripe second.
Any dialogue or conversation questions on this? Please call the roll.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Ms.
please.
Bates.
Has this been?
Wait, I don't see you.
Ron?
My
Where
name
are
is
you?
Vern Tempe.
I'm
And
I'm on my.
Vern,
phone.
mute yourself. Vern, mute. Thank you.
Yeah,
Davis,
I'm
go
on
ahead.
my phone. Has this been run past the directors and,
anyway.
how is it? Oh, Vern, stop it.
Hold on, I'll have to call you back.
Okay, thanks, Vern. Am I on?
Mavis, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Has this been run past the directors? And I'm just concerned, is this gonna cause serious delays in what the directors want and need to do?
I
So-
believe this was quite the opposite, but
This was at the request of those directors, and it is more permissive than the previous policy, so it will not introduce any delays.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thank you. That's all.
Mr. Chairman, Alan,
yes, Deb.
the question is, have the directors seen this before it came to us?
This was created at their request.
I understand that, but have they had a chance to review it before it came to us today? Otherwise, I would like to put it off for a month so that we get any input that they want to make, and then we'll consider that as part of the resolution.
No, since it was made at response to their request, no, it was their input that made us do this change. So I believe they would all be in favor of it because they are the ones that asked for it, but no, it was not. You mean the actual resolution itself was not circulated? No.
Exactly. Mr. Chairman, I move to postpone this for 30 days. Is there a second?
So second.
Lewis, seconds.
Would it make more sense to circulate that between now and executive? We've got almost a month. and-
If that's a question to me as chairman, yes, it does make sense to keep this moving. We have a $29 million shortfall that we are trying to plug and make inroads to. We should by all means keep this moving forward. But if it is this committee's desire to delay this further, you know what, by all means. So
Mr. Chairman, Alan?
hang on one second, Ms. Juby.
Sure.
Know that this is the appropriate time to ask. I probably should have asked before there was a motion to delay it. May I address Ms. Allen?
Yes, although,
I'm just curious,
is there dialogue during a motion to delay though?
well,
Does anybody know that?
Yes.
yes,
Mhm.
that's why I said it was inappropriate.
Perfect.
I got away with it.
Got it.
I'm just
Go ahead.
curious,
Yes.
just curious what her concern is on what the executive directors are would push back on, because this actually clarifies what their position is and allows it to follow through the committee structure. So as Ms. Labrillo said, it's much less restrictive than what we had before, because it's allowing them to make the determination at the level on things that are less money. And they would have had to come through the board for that. And then for more money, they still would have had to go through their committees. So it's actually smoothing out the process. So I don't understand what the pushback would be. And it's not my committee, so I can't vote no on giving it 30 more days, but I don't see any reason why this shouldn't go forward.
I concur.
Mr. Chairman Allen,
Yes.
I am just responding to comments that I've received for months from numerous directions. And since we're trying to solve the problem, I just figure that the people waving their arms and stomping their feet should have a chance to see if this in fact solves the problem we're trying to solve. And I agree with everything Ms. Juby said. Absolutely, this is better. And Cliff, if you want to try and get it to exec, I don't even object to that. I'm not sure what the logistics should be. I just think that the people who are most affected should have a chance to see this before
Deb,
we
I
move
totally
it.
agree with you. And Michelle, I do see your hand. However, Debbie, I do want to point out that at some point, if there's somebody that has a problem with something that's on an agenda, they should write an email and document their concern and come up with a solution or a change that they would like to see. Simply hiding in the background and sitting in the shadows and casting dispersions doesn't help us move items forward. And then we spend all this time and it gets vetted by the state's attorney and we get to hear and somebody goes, oh, well, okay, if you had a concern, please email it so that we can address it. Don't speak to it off to the side. And then we get here and here it's going to be another 60 days, now another, 90 days. Now why bother? I mean, we spend our staff time doing stuff and again, I'm not being critical, but I am asking for cooperation that if somebody sees something that they don't like, be very specific about it. Stand up, raise your hand and say, you know what? Can we change this word to this? Or I don't like the intention of that. Or this is really trying to circumvent, because we painstakingly went out of our way to make sure that this was exactly what everybody asked for to move it forward. So I have no problem sandbagging this and we'll come back to it. But if you are aware, as a board member, if you are aware of somebody that has raised their hand in the air, send this to them and ask for a response and tell them to place it to the director that put it together. I don't know how much more fair I can be on that. So,
Cliff, if I may, I might help you be able to speed this along.
Michelle, go ahead.
Thanks. So I think to Ms. Allen's point, I'm not on the committee, but she did concede that she would agree to moving it to executive. And to your point, where if there are people that are complaining, the problem here, Cliff, is, and I think this is what Ms. Allen's trying to say, is they haven't actually looked at the resolution to be able to articulate to you that they have a problem with it. And I think that's a fair thing to bring up. So I think the answer to what's going on right now is to ask Ms. Allen if she would amend her motion to postpone it to, executive, and then you guys can move forward. So that they have the opportunity to look at it and complain.
And just to, Michelle, just to let you know that it has been pointed out to me that once a motion to debate, to postpone has been brought to the floor, that there is no debate on that. It goes to an original, which is what I thought, but could not document that. Samantha, thank you so very much. I appreciate that. So we either have a motion on the floor that needs to be removed, or we call the vote for the motion. I will assume that to be called the vote to postpone.
Postpone it next month. Alan?
We're voting to postpone.
Unless she would.
We're following your motion unless you decide to remove the motion.
Thank you very much. I'm not going to remove the motion, but let's vote. I'm voting aye.
Gripe?
No.
Lewis?
Lewis, yes.
Tarver?
Tarver, no.
Linder?
Linder, no.
Surges?
Surges, no.
It does not pass 2-4.
Call the vote on the original motion, please.
Original Allen?
Alan, no.
Gripe?
Yes.
Lewis?
Lewis, no.
Tarver?
Tarver, yes.
Linder?
Linder, yes.
Surges?
Surges, yes.
Passes 4-2.
Welcome, Mr. Tarver. Item 10B,
Mr. Chair, point of order.
I'm so sorry,
Mr.
yes.
Chairman, Mr. Chairman, Alan,
Hi, Deb. Go ahead before John.
I just wanted to say thank you for the consideration.
Appreciate you, always. John?
My point of order was relative to what I think Deb was trying to accomplish, which I think we're going to do anyway. It's on its way to exec, right? And the document can be forwarded to the department head, to whomever, to have them review it before exec.
So not only was it posted before the meeting with the appropriate amount of time for review, without receiving any emails or correspondence to the contrary, it now has an entire cycle to be reviewed where I would expect that anybody who has a grievance or a recommendation to improve it has plenty of opportunity to do that before executive session. So
I'd also like to point out that we did discuss this last month and the committee asked me to write it. So
we have beat this to death. So, I mean, okay. 10B, attrition plan discussion. If I could just start off with this, I sent an email out to the committee and to the board. My concern with the attrition program is a generalized misunderstanding. We can use the term an attrition program and we can assign a dollar figure to it. And that dollar figure was just north of $8 million. But that's at the most fundamental basics of that. Because what has happened, as we just saw in the last motion, people begin to look at it and say, well, hey, what about my group? And what about my interest? And what about this? And what about that? And by the time you say, okay, well, we're going to take out the offices, we don't want them to be part, or we can't control that part of the attrition program. And then we say, hey, anything that's grant funded, we really shouldn't be touching that. Or, hey, anything that's in a special revenue, okay, we shouldn't touch that. Well, the attrition program then gets pared down from just north of $8 million to $700,000. I'm just north of 740,000, whatever it was I sent in the email. So, and at that point, when you're looking at a $29 million spread, $700,000 all of a sudden isn't really cost effective. And you have to, I'm so sorry. And you have to question it. So, I just, the point of having this on the agenda was to point that out and make sure that we as a committee understood the shortcomings, shortfall of limiting that, and that we're not getting stuck in rhetoric to use the term attrition plan with some grandiose notion that there's significant impact, when the reality is after we layer everything into it, it's really not that big. And it's only going to affect a handful of our departments. And at that point, is that truly fair to those departments? And is that really what our intent was? So I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention, open that up for any dialogue. Jamie, we're not looking for direction on this right now or anything. It's just omnibus out there. And we're just looking for some clarity. Is that correct?
yes, I don't need anything. I don't know that this is continuing. Of course, if this committee would like me to prepare something, they should give me the guidelines that they want me to prepare it under, and I'm happy to do whatever this committee would like me to do. But we're not currently working on anything further with an attrition plan. It seems like the feedback has been, we do have a sheet that is out there that allows the committee chairs to control new hiring if they want to do so. Anything further this committee wants me to draft, I'm happy to do, but I'd appreciate direction from the committee if they do want something done to let me know what they would like that to be.
Anybody at all? Mr. Gripe?
Yeah, I'm an analogy guy. So the analogy I think of is that we're going to put up speed limit signs around town. And we're going to say, here's the speed limit. But then we tell people, you drive whatever speed you want. Right. And that's kind of how I look at this
I
thing.
think we're saying, yeah, but there's the speed limit unless you drive a Chevy or you drive a Cadillac or you drive a Nissan. Those don't apply to you. But for everybody else, there's the speed limit.
Yep.
And by the way, the speed limit's already been out there for years and years. We just choose not to look at the speed limit sign. So
I say, whatever it is, and I don't know whatever it would be, but we need to do something to give this some traction, if I may.
I'm not sure what that is. Without direction from this committee, I'm not sure what that is. Mr. Linder.
Well, this is probably a point more for the entire board than for this committee. But I think at some point in time, we have to have a very serious conversation with the electeds to say that this shortfall is as much their problem as it is ours. And it isn't possible to take $29 million out of the departments that we control. Can't happen. So we need to have a serious conversation with those folks and try to get them to cooperate with some of this stuff, to join in. I know that they don't have to, or they won't have to until we're out of money and just have to say, sorry, folks. But I think we need to invite them to be part of the solution.
Mike, I sent, my emails went out to the entire board in an effort to help educate and just make sure everybody understands where we're at on some of this stuff. I think, and this is just Cliff speaking, not on behalf of the committee at all, but I think that there is this notion that we as a board are under, that we have been threatened with litigation against us as a board from some of, not all of, the elected offices that has somehow begun to hamstring us. And we're afraid to have dialogue now regarding that for fear of litigation. And I just think that that's so incredibly dangerous because, guys, there's a finite amount of money and we're going to run out. So if we don't get serious about some of these, and again, in context, my emails that went to the board were just to give information for this dialogue, because should you have the opportunity to speak with an elected, I would want you to bring up, but the attrition policy, there's a $7 million gap between including you and guys and not including you guys or gals, whatever, you know. And if you don't know that and you're speaking, don't be ignorant to it. Be aware of that conversation, because if we don't get them on board, and Jamie, I'm not trying to speak out of line, but, and I certainly don't understand how this works, but how do we say, listen, this is all the money we have to give you? I don't want to get to that point. I'm hoping that before that, you know, and again, that's not this committee. And so I don't want to go really deep into it, but the things that we can give information to, I mean, my emails were very specific and very lengthy. If you wanted to talk about budget, we can, and again, this is attrition plan stuff, but I mean, there's health insurance savings. We didn't want to go there. There's attrition savings. We didn't want to go there. There's readjustment. Okay, doing the best we can. We can't even get a personnel policy without, you know, having a little bit of pushback. So we're doing the best we can educationally. And again, it's up to us as 24-member collective to kind of come to grips with this. But, you know, again, I'm going to challenge everybody that if you have an opinion or you have some facts and figures, bring those forward so that we're all educated on it. And we can help make those judgment calls, if you will.
Yeah, I just I think it's necessary that that conversation be sit down, let's talk, as opposed to just hoping that they see the numbers and jump on.
Oh, I hear you. Believe me, I hear you. And it's a Herculean task. So Jamie, do you have what you need? Not that you needed anything on this, but was I accurate in my statements? I'm sure you and Ms. Hopkinson went to painstaking efforts to put those figures together. Hopefully I communicated them and articulated that in the intent it was meant.
Yeah, I wasn't looking for anything particular from this. I think the discussion was just on to wrap up for the sake of this committee where that was at. So
Okay. Motion to place reports on file.
Linda moves.
I don't want to.
Alan second.
Okay, perfect. Is that an all in favor? Or just a motion is carries? Voice vote on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Mr. Gripe.
Yeah, kind of back under new business. Two things, Jamie, if you could update us a little bit on any progress on the ethics ideas and then the performance, department head performance conversations we've had.
certainly, the ethics, I have prepared job descriptions and sent them to the chairman's office. So it's up to the chairman to move forward in whatever manner she wants at the point of appointing someone to the Ethics Commission. And the ethics advisor has indicated his intent to retire. So that needs to be reviewed as well. So all of that has been sent up.
Did he give a deadline by chance?
I don't know I can't remember what it was off the top of my head, but
Like imminent or like? he
Like
gave us
imminent.
Months.
imminent. Well, I mean, he gave us months in February.
Okay.
So it's imminent. So I think we definitely need to make sure that that's moving forward. So that's an appointment. So it goes through commission's appointments the same way any commission's appointments would be handled. And then as far as department head evaluations, I was a little preoccupied with workforce development for a couple months. At this point, I've gone back to that. I have job descriptions for all the department heads gathered and a general idea of what an evaluation would look like that I can send back out to you and Ms. Juby probably within the next week. You guys had asked that I kind of try to customize some of the points on each of those descriptions to the job descriptions, and that's where we're at with it right now.
Okay.
That answer? Go ahead.
Yeah, it did. Thank you very much. But this is one of those things, when this meeting ends and I go home, I'm going to be going, there was an elephant sitting in the room and we didn't address it. Not a political statement, by the way. Attrition, there's gotta be something we could do, because the more we back ourselves into a corner by not considering things or saying, well, we don't like it, but so it's off the table. And I don't hear anybody saying it's off the table, it's on the table, it's just nothing. And again, I'm a new guy here. So, but I see that we're speeding towards this cliff and we're like, well, do you want to hit?
John, let's describe that for a second. Jamie, is there an attrition plan that's in place right now?
Right now, we are under a hiring freeze by resolution that was established in 2018. In order for non-grant departments or non-grant positions to be hired, even filling existing positions, the chair of the standing committee needs to sign off on that. That's currently in place.
Has anybody ever, let me try and say this politely. Have we said no to anybody yet?
Not that I am aware of. So I'm not necessarily in every conversation that happens, but I'm not aware of any positions being declined to be filled that department heads have requested to be filled.
So again, I don't say that to be the smart aleck. I say that to give some context to it. We have something in place, yet every time we've approved, so that proverbial cliff, not to have a pun here, but that cliff that we're speaking of, John, it would be my opinion that the work that Mavis has undertook trying to peel the onion down to those mandated or required tasks of the county to me makes just so much sense. Because if you have this type of attrition plan in place and people are requesting, at some point, the 24-member board is going to have to look and say, I'm sorry, you know what, this doesn't fit our core strategic, initiatives here or our mandates. And maybe the votes would be different on those. And again, Mavis has taken a little bit of heat, I think, for doing this, but I applaud her for stepping up and saying, hey, I'll shoulder that. So, I mean, and I was the first one to gripe at her, and no pun there. But I was the first one to kind of, push back on her and say, Mavis, I'm not in favor of this, but we just need a format to follow. And her and Roger put it together. So anyhow, any other comments on that?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, Alan,
Hi, Deb.
hi, I'm actually in the parking lot listening because I don't want to miss a word. I do not pay enough attention to the judicial public safety meetings every month. Do the elected offices, do they bring their requests in to that committee? Do they say we've had 4 state's attorneys resign and we need to replace 4 state's attorneys? Is that a conversation that happens?
I'll let Jamie respond.
No, they have internal
thank you,
control,
Dave.
so the board doesn't have any authority to tell them if they can or can't rehire someone. So the sheet that I'm discussing only affects county departments and not elected officials. You legally can't put that kind of restricted on your elected officials.
Okay, I just wondered if that was like a conversation that they had in that committee, and the answer is no. Jamie, thanks very much. I wish we could give you a magic wand and change all that.
It's I come from the generation where my children watch the show High School Musical, and there's a song in there, we're all in this together. Guys, at some point, we have to be in this together, okay? It's just, I mean, were you laughing at me? Because that was funny, so, no. Any other questions or conversation on this? Any old business that we missed? I do not see a need for executive session number 12, and I would be open to a motion for adjournment.
Linda moves for adjournment.
Lewis seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.